Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I nearly said good morning, but it is past 12 o'clock, so good afternoon, everybody. Ian Doyle is my name. I work for the Heritage Council, and what we have here for, it should be finished well before one, is a webinar on the Heritage Council's Adopt a Monument scheme, which is seeking new applications at the moment. We have a deadline of the 21st of March, and the idea of today is just to give a little bit of information and context for anybody who might be interested in applying. We have a really interesting lineup of speakers here for you this morning. I'm just going to say a few words, and then I'm going to hand over to Roisin Burke, who works for a company called Abarta Heritage. Abarta have been helping us run the Adopt a Monument scheme since we started it, must be 10 years ago at this stage. And then you're going to hear from, what's that line from those cookery programs? One we made earlier. Well, we have two we made earlier. You're going to hear from two veterans of Adopt a Monument. You're going to hear first from Liz Whelan, who's going to tell you about Dunmanogue in County Kildare, an amazing project, church site. And then you're also going to hear from Christina O'Connor from the Gallows Hill project in Dungarvan, County Waterford. She's going to tell you about this amazing mound in a housing estate in Dungarvan and the really interesting voyage of discovery that they had with that. So as I said, Adopt a Monument is running about 10 years at this stage. This might even be our 10th anniversary. I think it was 2015 or so we started it. We've had about over 35 community groups all across Ireland who have taken part. The scheme runs in other places in Europe as well, in Scotland and Finland, and there is interest in starting it in Northern Ireland as well at the moment. As I said, we're open for new members. Why is the Heritage Council doing this? It's because we believe that it's a huge role for communities in managing our heritage, and that archaeology is for everybody, and that people can interact and do all kinds of interesting things. So this scheme offers expertise, mentoring and support from the Heritage Council and from Roisin and her team, and then from the other members who've amassed a huge body of experience over the years in this. So as I said, we've adopted about 30 groups across Ireland in that period of time. Everything from ring forts to 19th century industrial buildings, and Roisin will give you a good flavour of that. Across Ireland, we have an amazing array of heritage. Ancient tombs, stone circles, monasteries, castles, churches, graveyards, I could go on. We take a broad view of what a monument is and Adopt a Monument. It doesn't have to be a recorded, legally protected archaeological monument. We're interested in modern things as well. It might be a lime kiln, it might be a handball alley, and Roisin will cover that as well. And our vision for this is that the monument will serve as a focal point for heritage-related educational and recreational activities and encourage appreciation and understanding of local heritage. Heritage is like glue. It brings people together. Really good community projects just bring people together to work for something that's as rewarding and as enriching as heritage. And that's what we see in this scheme. Now, I'm going to shortly hand over to Roisin, who will then hand over to Liz and then Christina, and we'll do some questions at the end. If you have questions, you see at the top of your screen, you should see a little box Q&A. If you want to type them into that, and don't be afraid to ask anything you want, and we'll go through them at the end, and we'll work our way through it. So I'm now going to hand over to Roisin. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the scheme and what we've learned, I suppose, over the last 10 years, and talk through the application process as well. And we'll hear from Christina and Liz. So I'm just going to share my presentation, but as I just said, it's very close to the end event button. So if anything drastic happens, you'll know it's my fault, and we'll try and get everybody back again as quick as we can. So I'm just going to start and play. Can everybody, is that okay? Yeah. I'm going
Yeah.
to, yeah, we can see that. That's great. So adopt a monument. What does the scheme do? Well, really, as Ian was saying there, it helps communities to protect, preserve, and promote their local heritage. And we believe that by adopting a monument, a group can bring their chosen monument into the heart of their community. So over the last nearly 10 years since we've been working on the scheme, we've worked with a wide range of monuments, as Ian said. This is an example of one monument that we've been working with over nearly 10 years. This is Doon Fort in Donegal. It was adopted by the Donegal Gap Heritage and History Group, and they are now coming to the end of their conservation process of this monument, which shows you that really by being part of the scheme, it can take a long time, and it's quite the journey, to use that phrase, and groups have to work at it for a long time. None of this happens very fast, but we're there working with the group the whole time, advising, mentoring, and guiding them through the process. So what types of sites are eligible to join the scheme? Any type of monument dating from any historical period is eligible for inclusion in the scheme. And we take a really broad view of heritage, as Ian said there. There is just one thing to be aware of. The only ineligible monuments are national monuments under the ownership or guardianship of the Minister for Housing, Local Government and Heritage. And a list of those can be found on archaeology.ie. That's the National Monument Service website, under the tab called Monument Protection. If you're not sure, contact your local authority heritage officer for advice. We'd say that in any case, anyway, if you are thinking of an application to the scheme, definitely get in touch with your local authority heritage officer. Every county council has one now, so they're a great starting point for anybody considering joining the scheme. Just to go back to the national monuments under the ownership or guardianship of the minister, think of your Rock of Cashels or your Clonmacnoise. Those sort of monuments would be national monuments under the ownership or guardianship of the minister, but there can be a number of others that you may not be aware of. So check archaeology.ie, but also contact your local authority heritage officer there. So the type of monuments that have come into the scheme over the last 10 years are things like church and graveyards, ring forts, castles. We have Drystone Island Fort, that's Doon Fort you just saw, Mott and Baileys, and Christine is going to talk about Gallows Hill, which is one of those. We had an early medieval mill race, we had a handball alley, a lime kiln, 19th century industrial buildings, walled garden, and a battery fort from the Napoleonic era. So you can see there's quite a wide range, or a diverse range of sites there included. This is an example of another site that came into the scheme. This is Baltimore Ring Fort down in Cork that was adopted by Baltimore Community Council. And another example of a site that came into the scheme is Moygarra Castle in Sligo. So you can see quite different site types there. What type of groups can join the scheme? Applications are welcome from any voluntary group or organisation, for example, Tidy Towns committees, heritage, historical, archaeological societies, community councils, community development organisations, men's sheds, or really any voluntary group committed to the ethos and objectives of the scheme would be keen to hear from any type of community group. And that really is the key to it. It has to be a community group. We don't accept applications from individuals because, as I'm sure Christina and Liz are going to talk about, it can be quite a lot of work, and it's too much really for an individual to take on. So that's why we're looking for applications from community groups. The scheme is community led, so it is very much up to the group to meet, to talk about what they want to achieve, and then to talk to us about how we can help them to achieve that. So it really is coming from the community, coming up, and we're providing the support and mentoring and guidance around what they're hoping to achieve. This is a picture of another group that came into the scheme. That's Glenmalure Pure Mild Heritage Group, and they were having a Heritage Week walk to celebrate the conservation works that they achieved at the site that they adopted back in 2016. So just to talk a little bit more about the type of support that the scheme provides, it's around mentorship. That's a lot of what we do. We help to guide groups through the different stages of a community heritage project. And there can be lots of different things that groups want to achieve, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. But we're there to help them, to advise them, to challenge them sometimes a little bit as well, and thinking about things a little bit differently. We also provide, I suppose, Adopt a Monument also provides a network, and we try and gather at least twice a year to bring the groups together so that they can connect together, form bonds, learn from each other, share experiences, talk about challenges that they're facing or going through. And it's great to provide that space for community groups to talk about the challenges they're experiencing and how they're working through their community heritage project. We're also partnered with the Discovery Programme, and they provide geophysical survey and help to the scheme every year. So kind of on a practical basis, the being part of Adopt a Monument will provide expert advice, training and guidance and best practice. We help the groups to form sustainable plans as well. We're always talking about the management plans. And that's one of the first things we start working on with the group when they come into the scheme. We sit down with the group, we give them a management plan template, and then we work through the different things. So if it's conservation, what conservation needs to happen, how is that going to happen? Interpretation, what are we looking at there? Access, tourism, understanding the monument, research. We look at different themes and work to put a plan together, because I suppose we're very aware that these community heritage projects, they're not for 1 or 2 years. Really, you're looking at trying to put a sustainable plan together for the monument for the next number of years so that it could be handed on again to the next generation, One of the big things that we do as well is we mediate between communities and state bodies. Many monuments that come in would be maybe recorded monuments, or they might be protected structures. So that means that there's legislative things that need to be understood, and we need to work through different forms and notifications and things like that to make sure everything is done properly, and all stakeholders involved, whether it's National Monument Service or the local authority, are involved and updated in what the plans are. So that is a key part of our work with Adopt a Monument. We also identify appropriate funding opportunities and help the community group with grant applications. We can review grant applications too and advise on the right sort of grant to achieve what the group is looking to do. Being part of Adopt a Monument can be a powerful badge for that community, and it kind of acknowledges the work that they've done and that they're trying to do. And it allows them to be part of a national scheme that follows best practice. As I said earlier, it also gives them the opportunities to network with other communities, to share experiences. And we work to connect the groups with specialists and experts in archaeology, heritage, history, and other disciplines who can advise on plans for their chosen monument. We also provide guidance and advice on how best to tell the story of the monument through high quality interpretation. So this is an image of another site that came into the scheme. This is Knockboy Church in Waterford, and this is stonemason Tom Pollard and his team during the works that took place at Knockboy. And this is an image from a story sharing evening that we had at Glenmalure a few years ago, where over 50 people from the local community came along to a story sharing evening we organised to share their stories and memories about the site that was adopted by the group there. So to talk about things that groups want to achieve when they come into the scheme first, one key thing, I suppose, one of the big things that groups want to do is to conserve and protect the site. And we're often told by groups that we don't want to be the generation that sees the monument collapse. They don't want it to collapse on their watch, as they say. So what we do in that case is we sit down at the start and we start asking the group to work on their management plan to figure out the kind of the range of conservation works that might be needed at the site. We work with them to start getting funding for, usually we start with conservation management plan, and that will determine the extent of the works that need to take place at the monument. The next step then would be to look at funding to fund the actual conservation works, and we'll help the group get in touch with an expert, with a conservation architect. We'll help them to apply for funding for those works, and then to keep everybody, as I said earlier, to keep everybody updated about the works, we'll mediate with the local authority and the state bodies and all through the process. So the picture here is the Church's Wrath at Killashandra. The top picture is when they came into the scheme first. You can see the roof there doesn't look great, the barrel vaulted roof. And then the bottom picture is after works took place, and they have their new zinc roof protecting the interior of the building there. So these works were only completed a couple of years ago, even though this group came into the scheme in 2016. So it just shows that it does take a long time to achieve these objectives, but it's just by kind of working through it, keeping everyone updated and applying for funding every year, but having a clear plan, which we'll work on at the start of the project to achieve the aims and objectives. A lot of groups would also say we want a better sense of place and to know more about the generations that have gone before us. We'll work with that group to help them to understand more about the site. So that can be through historical research or through archaeological research. And this is a picture of Gallows Hill, which Christina is going to talk about shortly, about excavations that the group were able to receive funding for to find out more about Gallows Hill and what that site was about. And raising awareness. A lot of groups would say we want to pass on our knowledge to future generations and to tell our story to visitors. Again, we're sitting down with the group to find out how best we can do that. And this picture here is an event that we helped organize with the Glenmalure group. It's a dig in a box, literally just plastic boxes with some soil and some artifacts, nothing too old or important, things that we found in the garden. And we gave some trials to kids that came along to find out, to try and recreate a mini excavation. And there was also talks that the groups organized there as well. So it was just a celebration of the site and a multi-generational. I suppose we're trying to get as many people there as possible to pass on the learning and knowledge that the group had found during their work at the site there. So this is an image here of Dr. Susan Kern at Rathbay Ringfort in Kilkenny, and Susan is part of the Discovery Programme. As I mentioned earlier, part of the work for Adopt a Monument now involves working with the Discovery Programme, and they provide geophysical surveys, topographical surveys, and they also do drone flights over sites as well to help us understand more about the site. And this is Susan at Rathbay Ringfort in Kilkenny. So I've covered, I suppose, a lot there about the practical sides of what the scheme does, who can apply, what type of sites we'd be looking at. But now I think it'd be great to hand over to Liz Whelan from the Castledermot History Group, and they adopted Dunmanogh Church and Graveyard in Kildare back in 2022, I think, but Liz can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let you come in now, Liz, to tell us more about your experiences on the scheme.
All right, thanks very much. I'm going to just really talk a little bit about my personal journey into the scheme. I joined Castledermot Local History Committee back in 2019, and then obviously COVID hit just after that. So when we were coming out of it, we had a few meetings in a farmyard, and one of the things was, how do we do something to get back online and do something different? And we were given, I was given the booklet on Adopt a Monument to have a look at and see if there was something that would be feasible for us. And I did, I read through it and I brought to the next committee feeling that it was very much something that I personally would be interested in, because I like the whole setup of it, as Roisin has talked about, the mentoring and support, but also the mixture of people that you could learn so much. And to me, the biggest thing obviously was going to be the guidance about making sure we got the right experts and we did things right. So we then had a big debate about what monument or what we would pick within the parish. As I say, I was new to the whole thing. So they had previously done the wall, got a conservation plan for the town, the walls in the town in Castledermot. So the concept was then that we would look for somewhere outside the town village sort of thing to look at. And where we were having the meetings was just up the road from this particular monument. So that was a good argument for it. But also, talking amongst the committee and things, it was very much felt it was a forgotten monument. It's out in the countryside. Probably most people that used it would obviously be the locals, and for kids missing from the local school, and a few beers and youngsters and whatever else over time. Not a lot of damage done by any of them because it was only known by local, even to the extent that the landlord of the owner of the field actually told us that when he had met his wife before that, she didn't believe him when he told him that they actually had a graveyard. I think it took him quite a few years to convince him that down at the bottom of the road there's a graveyard that belongs that's in our property. So we decided to go for this. We felt it was something that we could learn an awful lot about, and that was one of the big things, was the learning process. That there's a lot of monuments in that in the local area. It's very South Kildare. Actually, within walking distance of this particular monument, you could be in Laois or Carlow, and you know, a lot of people knew the graveyard was there, but didn't actually, when you talk to them in the town, didn't actually know the name of the graveyard or anything like that. So it was getting lost, and people felt it was, the locals very much felt it was being neglected, and they were losing what they knew about it as well. So we decided we'd go for this, and the application then was to put the application into the Adopt the Monument. Now, the form itself is fairly indicative, but a lot of challenging, like this particular, there wasn't an awful lot of stuff out about Dunmanogue, where it was trying to find something. It's the graveyard itself, it's a very early monastic site, and the ruins, the church ruins, is believed to be early medieval, and it declined somewhere around in the 17th century. Last burials took place in the 1960s, but obviously the concept has been there obviously going to be burials there for about 1,000 years anyway. There's banks of an earlier enclosure are preserved within it. So there's all sorts of, when we actually went to look at it, even though I knew it was there, I'd never actually been into it, partly because you have to go through private field to get into it. So the biggest challenge then was obviously getting permission. Where do we go? Who do we find? The landlord was kind of supportive, but a little bit on the fence about access and insurance and all of that sort of things, which is understandable. The other thing, it is finding out who looked after it and whatever else. We discovered it was in the care of Kildare County Council, so it was important. And the Heritage Officer was amazingly supportive, getting permission to actually do it from their point of view. And then when you start talking to locals, I found out so much more. There was actually a Dunmanogue Graveyard Committee, which basically only came and sprayed it with chemicals once a year. So it was, but they were willing to engage. They wanted to look after it properly, shall we say. Yeah. So the biggest thing then was we got the application in, and from my point of view, being totally new to all of this, I would say when the assessors came out to actually look at the site in early, we put the application in late 21, January 22, the assessors came out, and the amount of knowledge gained by the committee, we expanded from the history group to include the locals that were interested just in this particular project, and obviously the graveyard committee, because from my point of view, one of the wonderful things is that when we eventually get hopefully our piece soon, the committee will still go on to maintain it and take it forward, which was very important as well, because I felt really we didn't want to just do something and then when we finished and moved on, or if we disbanded, that it would go back to square one. So that was important. But as I said, the biggest learning curve for me to start off with was the assessors talking about the conservation plans, who we needed to approach, what we might need to do about that, and just the whole concept of a conservation plan, not just what it actually involved, to be totally truthful. I think obviously some of the other members will have done things before that, but for me it was just a total eye opener. And to have an organisation such as Adopt a Monument that would have the expertise and the knowledge and to answer the questions was great. There were also Roisin initially was very much my contact, and she would look at application forms we put in, because one of the biggest things then, well, obviously they said you need to get money for a conservation plan. So we went to the Heritage Council, and we're very fortunate in our first year to actually get the money to do so. But they get the experts, that to me was one of the big things. Also being able to ask people. I had no, I mean, the biggest thing was about how approachable everyone was. And even when we did have a little bit of an advantage in the sense of that when Sharon Green went to work for Abarta, we did you feel more comfortable when you know somebody sometimes within an organization. But to me, we went on then and we got the conservation plan, and then we had to move forward. And every time I ran into an obstacle, Abarta would be there. When I discovered that I needed permission, we thought start off with, let's cut the grass and see what's underneath it. And after all, that's what the graveyard committee had been doing for years. And then suddenly I discovered that I needed permission to do that. And between the heritage officer and everyone else, you just felt that there was somebody there that would support you, and that's so invaluable. So once we got that, I then discovered I needed permission. We ran into things about when you could cut the grass, when you couldn't. We eventually ended up after a couple of times down the line, finding that it was a national monument and I needed the minister's permission. So there was all sorts of stuff that I hadn't anticipated to start off with because I had no real knowledge of it. And while we'd done the conservation plan for the wall town, we hadn't done for something as complex as a graveyard and things like that. The guidance was amazing. The networking I find over the years, particularly even the Zoom meetings and the actual face-to-face meetings with other people, other groups, has been just the learning opportunity, finding out what others is doing, and particularly those that are not history groups. They challenge you to think outside the box about what you might be doing with those. The Discovery Programme you mentioned, we were very fortunate that the Discovery Programme did a geophys on this field surrounding it. And actually off to the left-hand side, they discovered the ruins of the medieval village that was there. So we've now got everyone quite excited about where the center of this village would be, and the stories and things that might go about it, even though we consider this probably gone for 400 or 500 years. It's interesting to find that people have stories locally about it. We've now got, just to update you what we've done so far, has been that we have got the ivy and everything cleared off the ruins. So the archaeologist has been able to go in and have a proper look at that. We've now put in for another stream to tidy up and to look at it properly. We have we have a plan for going forward, how to maintain it. We have to look at things, and the Heritage Council and the Barton have been very involved with giving us advice about where we might go to forward, going, how do we maintain it? What do we, do we let it go back to nature, or do we do some structure with it? How are we going to interpret this? Funding has been, we've been very fortunate. The Community Monument Fund gave us the money to clear the ivy. The local Vintage Club gave us the money to do a graveyard survey, which has been great. Kildare County Council have come in with some funding. Athy, we're part of the municipal district of Athy. They have come through with some funding. So it's been open to funding from other sources and not just looking for the mainstream ones as well, for bits of projects that might help us go forward and things like that. Is there anything else there you think of, Roisin?
No, I just think it's great the work that you've done. The conservation works have now been almost complete there on the site, and it's really, as you say, it's tidying up and looking at the maintenance of it and interpreting it. Now they're the key things to
Yeah.
work on over the next couple of years. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's great
The only
work that you've
challenge I
done.
would say is keeping the group together. Over that time, people have come in and out, and it's been allowing that flexibility too is important. That just because somebody drops off because of a family issue or something like that, it's no harm going back next year and saying, can you give us another few hours, or locals that would give you physical stuff but won't necessarily become involved in committees and things. So it's about being open to that as well. It's a challenge.
But I think you've done great work though in keeping everyone updated and having regular meetings kind of to update people as to where things are going and inviting everybody along to those. So you know, it is difficult to keep momentum going, but the way you're going about it by just having meetings and inviting people along to them is important, you know, because even when there wasn't much happening, you were still sort of trying to update people as well, you know, so that's kind of key to it
I
as
think
well.
the experts have been very good and very facilitating about along and talking at these meetings. And that's kept the enthusiasm of the locals going as well, feeling that people care about it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Liz.
I see, Roisin, Liz, we have a comment in the chat. Is there a picture of the site now? I don't think we have one at the moment, do we?
If you leave that with me, I might be able. I might be able to get one before the end of the presentation. But I do. Yeah. I think I might be able to. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that, Paul. Are we ready to go to
Yep.
Christina
So we're going
now?
to Christina. Yeah.
Go on, Roisin.
Oh, sorry. So we'll move on to, thanks so much for that, Liz. That was great insight there. And we'll move on to Christina O'Connor now from Gallows Hill Group in Dungarvan in Waterford. Christina, do you want to pick it up there?
Yeah, thanks, Roisin. Thank you. Yeah, so we joined Adopt a Monument back in 2016. So we would have been one of the first, I think, one of 6 groups to begin the project. And our site is the mound you can see here. So it's Gallows Hill and it's located in Dungarvan, County Waterford. So it's very much surrounded by housing estates, apart from the small section you can see there at the front. And the mound has been quite a mystery for a long, long time because basically we don't know anything about its history. And it's also been the site of antisocial behaviour for a few decades with bonfires. So we felt at Waterford County Museum, which is a volunteer-led museum, we decided that we would try and find something out about the site. Maybe by finding out some of the history, you know, we could change the, I suppose, the perception that had built up over the site over a few decades, and maybe make people see it in a history light, and you know the importance of the local of its importance to local heritage. So we really wanted to try and find out what was the hill. I suppose the most popular theory in the past has been a motte. There's a lot of mounds like this in Ireland, and they look like mottes. So I suppose that's, you know, the obvious choice was that it could be a motte. Earlier historians did say it was earlier or believed it was earlier. So we wanted to find out how early is the mound, or, you know, just build up a bit of a story and picture that we could, you know, tell people about. So in 2015, we carried out our first geophysical survey at the site, and this was funded by Waterford Council. We didn't really have any plan. We just wanted to do the survey. We did the survey, and what we found was a large circular feature running around the mound. suggested a ditch around the mound, which was really exciting. We'd found, there is some evidence there that it was, a site that was used. So there were so many more questions. And I suppose at this point we were at a bit of a crossroads. We didn't really know where we were going with the project. And then the Adopt a Monument program came up. They were looking around this time, maybe 9 years ago, they were looking for new applicants. So we knew straight away, we had to be part of it. It was what we were looking for, the guidance and support. And so we made the application, kept our fingers crossed, and there was great excitement. When we were selected, we were picked as one of 6 groups. And that's been, it's been brilliant for us. It really has given us a lot of guidance and confidence. And with that support, we went on the following year, that year in 16, we carried out a second geophysical survey, which was funded by the Heritage Council. And with the support of Roisin and all the team, we also carried out a medieval fair for Heritage Week, which was brilliant because we were able to get the community down to the site. We had the Big Dig, we're running an archaeology excavation for children. So it really opened up the site and it allowed people to come and see what we were doing and I suppose what we were trying to uncover. And we then went on from 2017 until 2021. We carried out 4 seasons of excavations at the site. And this was brilliant. It was a real experience for us. And these were funded, 3 of these surveys were funded by the Royal Irish Academy, which again was brilliant. And we were very lucky to have the support of local archaeologists, Dave Pollock and Joe Moran. So working with Adopt a Monument, with Dave, with Joe, the museum, we had now an incredible group of volunteers and we were very lucky really. We had a lot of volunteers would come, would go, but we had a very good solid, I suppose, base of volunteers who have stayed with us throughout the project. And the discoveries we've made, I won't go into them in too much detail, but basically they really have shed a lot of light on the history of the site. And looking at it's allowed us to answer the questions, what was the hill? And we now know through excavation that, as the name suggests, it was a gallows at one point in history during the 15th, 16th century. But what was a big surprise to us in 2018, we found burials on the hill. So the hill had also been used as a burial ground. And we were so lucky to be able to do radiocarbon isotope on some of these remains. And we could say that at least 3 of the individuals would have died in the 15th, 16th centuries. We were able to say that they were from the Dungarvan area. We could even look at their diets, their deficiencies. So we built up a fantastic story, really, of what was happening at this time. But that was kind of the beginning of it, really. We then went on the following year and so 2018-19, and we found then a lot of charred remains from oak planks, which were buried under the mound, but originally would have lain maybe as a walkway. And we were able to radiocarbon date these and other remains that we found the year before. And these dates were coming up at around the 7th century, so the 8th century, which, was fantastic because I suppose we see a lot of these mounds, but they are presumed to be Anglo-Normans. So I suppose we're showing that that isn't always the case. Gallows Hill wasn't built as a motte. It may have at some stage been a motte. Unfortunately, the top of the mound was sliced when they were restructuring. But we did find a 12th century TLB King Henry coin, which was brilliant. So, maybe it was as a motte. There's still a lot more to discover about the site, but it's really changed, I suppose, our perception of the history of the area and what it means, for Dungarvan. But it's been an incredible opportunity, and it's not just the excavations, the surveys, it's the brilliant people that we've met, the professionals, the volunteers, over those years, and we've had some incredible opportunities as well. During our medieval fair, we had Nationwide come down and they did a piece on Gallows Hill. We've had John Creedon, for his place names, has scaled the hill and done a short piece about it. We were very honoured to be invited as well to Kilkenny Castle back in 2017 and represent the project with the then Royal Highness Prince Charles, who he was at the time. So we've had an incredible experience over the 9-10 years, being part of the project. And we're hoping this year to, we had a break for a year or two, but we're hoping this year to do another investigation. It's still in planning at the minute, but it's been an incredible experience. And being part of Adopt a Monument really, I suppose, gave us the focus and the confidence as well as the support, to be able to do these things. And it's very much been, I suppose, step by step. It's not something that happens overnight. It's something that you build on, and every year you're kind of adding and adding and adding. And but I would recommend, anybody thinking of applying for Adopt a Monument to do it, because I suppose at the core of Adopt a Monument is very much about the local community, helping them to be advocates of their own heritage. So it's a really important scheme, and we've been, incredibly honoured to be part for the past 9 years. So yeah, I would definitely recommend anyone out there thinking of it to, apply.
It's great.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, Christina, for that. It's great to hear your experience and how much you've achieved over the last 10 years nearly, from where you started. So I'm delighted to hear you're planning more projects as well. So definitely come back to me
Yeah.
when you have
Yeah.
more ideas around that. Yeah, so that's great. Thanks so much. So it was brilliant to hear from Christina and Liz, and hopefully there's some inspiration there for anybody thinking of applying for the scheme. As we said at the start, the closing date is the 21st of March. And to apply for the scheme, it's really to fill out the application form. And the application form is online on the Heritage Council's website, on the Adopt a Monument webpage. You can see the application form and download it there. So I'm just going to talk through the application form now and talk about the key parts of it and what people need to just be aware of. And then we can take any questions that anybody has once I go through the application form. So when you go onto the web page, you'll see there's a link there to download the application form. This is what you'll download. This is the first page of it. We just have a couple of paragraphs explaining about the scheme there. We have a link to the Adopt a Monument manual, which Liz mentioned earlier, and that has a lot of information in it about how to undertake a community heritage project. It's worth having a look at that if you haven't seen it yet. And then we have the closing date and the information about how to submit the application. So you email in completed application form and any supporting documents to adoptamonument@heritagecouncil.ie by 5 o'clock on the 21st of March. So this is the first, then, I suppose, proper page of the application form there. We start with group information, and that goes back to what I said earlier, that this application has to come from a group. We don't really accept them from individuals. So we're looking for the name of the group, lead contact, and the 3 examples of previous community projects the group or key members of the group may have been involved with. They don't have to be heritage projects. We just want to see examples of other things that the group was involved with over the last few years. The next page then is looking at the monument and monument details. So the name of the monument, where it's located, the SMR number of the monument. So that would be the number that National Monument Service have given that monument if it's recorded. That's on their website. There's a link to it there. If you can't find it or you're not sure what it is, don't worry about that. We can look into that ourselves. A really important section is just after that, and that's about the ownership of the monument, whether it's in private or local authority ownership. There has to be permission from the landowner included with the application form. So if it is the local authority, that permission would probably be coming from your heritage officer or from someone that you know in the local authority there. We need to see a written letter. If it's owned privately, we need to see a written letter from the landowner, because that's really the key thing with the application form, that landowner permission is included. Otherwise, the application form won't really be considered, because you know the landowner needs to be part of this from the very start. Then a description of the monument. So you can put in as much information as you can fit, I suppose, into this section. We're looking to find out, you know, where the monument is located, if any previous conservation work took place, if it's very overgrown, if it's inaccessible, just what the general condition of the monument is there. And do attach a location map if you can, and a couple of photographs as well, because they'll really help us when we are going through the application forms. The next section then is suitability of the monument. We want you to tell us in your own words why the monument is suitable for selection in the adopted monument scheme. Is there antisocial behaviour there? Has it been neglected for a very long time? Is it at risk from climate change? You know, just have a think about why you are really putting this monument forward for the scheme. And then the next section is about three objectives that you would like to, three objectives each year that you would like to achieve if your monument was chosen to be part of the adopted monument scheme. So, you know, we're setting the scene there that this really does take place over a number of years. It's not just, I want to conserve the monument. We want you to try and take a sort of a holistic view of the monument. Conservation, yes, that might be important, but also maybe think about finding out more about the monument, or more about the people who lived or worked or worshipped at the monument, or maybe raising awareness about it locally, opening it up a bit more to visitors. Just have a think about really what you really want to achieve by being part of the adopted monument scheme. And then there's the last page there, so you can see the eligibility criteria. Landowner permission must be obtained before a group applies to be part of the scheme. As I said earlier, national monuments in the ownership or guardianship of the minister are not eligible to be part of the scheme, and the list of national monuments can be found at that link there. And applications for the scheme must be submitted by established community groups. Applications from individuals are not eligible. So to find out more information, I would certainly recommend everyone to have a look at the Heritage Council website and the Adopted Monument page. On that page, we have information about groups that have been part of the scheme. We have the Adopted Monument Manual there, which is the guidance for community archaeology projects. We have a research toolkit, an infographic on graveyard maintenance, a link to the Know Your 5K, which we started during COVID as part of the Adopted Monument scheme there. So there's lots of resources on that page as well for you to have a look at. The closing date, as I said, is 21st of March, so there's still a week to go, so lots of time, hopefully, for people. And come to the end of the presentation, so I'd just like to thank you all for listening, and thanks especially to Christina and Liz for contributing to the presentation there. I hope there was I hope it was informative and maybe inspiring as well for people, and I'd really urge everyone to submit an application, because we love to see applications coming in from all over the country. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing now and hand back over to Ian there. Stop sharing. Don't stop event. Yeah. Okay.
Roisin, Liz, and Christina, that was brilliant. Now we had a few questions that I've been trying to answer. The first was, what's an average price for a conservation management plan? I think a basic one, if you start, a little bit, it depends what's the length of a length of string, but a basic one would be about €10,000. The Heritage Council will fund them through its Community Heritage Grant Scheme. Plans like that are really good for unlocking further funding. Then we had a question from Paddy. I've answered that. Does applying for a Heritage Council grant preclude you from applying for Adopt a Monument? No, is the answer. And then, should we apply for help from the Discovery Programme? Please, no, don't do that. We'll take care of that. We'll talk to them. And then we had a question from Katrina about our local authority owned buildings eligible. I think that was the question. No, they're not ineligible. Just get a letter of agreement or something, some support from the heritage officer. Now, a link to check if the monument is listed. The historic environment viewer, probably that. Roshan, can you?
I'll pop in a link into the chat there now. Yep.
The beauty of all that is that it's all now online. How long does the Adopt a Monument scheme run for if the applicant is successful? Now, there's a great question. Christina, we would kind of think of you as being still Adopt a Monument, but you don't really need us anymore.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, we do. I'd say we do. But no, I suppose we've been running now 9 years, and for the past 2 years, I suppose we've kind of taken a break. But yeah, I think these monuments are always going to need protection and long-term, support. Like we're going back, we hope this year to do another investigation, and there are other things that we want to do from the last excavation we did in 20. I think the last excavation was 21 or 22. So there's still work to do. There's still some surveys, geophysical surveys we want to do. There was a few things that came up to do with the planks around the mound. We wanted to find more, as to where they actually were and did they run around the mound. So I don't know, do you ever finish with the site?
No.
I think as long as the site there, it's a community site, and it's always going to need protection, conservation, and people are interested in discovering more. And I think the one thing we've found about the process is there never is an end. You do an investigation, and there's another 10 questions that you want to answer, and it just goes on. I suppose it changes. The process changes. What you're looking for changes over time. But yeah, I think when a group, I suppose, are involved, like we have the local Waterford County Museum, which is an incredible volunteer-led community museum. So it's very much about local history. And so I think as long as the museum's there, the volunteers working in the museum are there, the project will continue. Yeah, if that answers it.
I suppose what I was getting at, and we might open this up to Liz and to Roisin as well, is that we really try help to get a group started and on a path and to build up that capacity and confidence.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the groups just start moving with speed and momentum, and they don't need us as much, and they check back in with us every now and then, but they're flying under their own speed.
Can I just say to me, a lot, as you say, a lot of these are still flying, but as someone coming in on an early stages, the information like the Zoom meetings and all of that sort of thing, the information and questions they can answer are invaluable. So the longer that people with experience stay within the communication and the mentoring, and the fact that you can be, say even like Dungarvan, if there was something there that I wanted, I know Roisin would say, this is who you contact and whatever. So in a sense, it's how long is a piece of string. I think people are available to be, and once your name is within it, that it might be a little while, as you say, you might take a break, Christine, but I think, if somebody had a question now or something similar, you'd be available to say, this is where we went and this is how we found things. And
yeah, of course.
Yeah. And I mentioned the other thing, by the way, Ian, you mentioned about the conservation plan.
Yeah.
Our one cost in total just over 20,000, but we needed a bat survey, we needed an ecology survey, we needed a tree specialist in, because that tree in the middle of the thing is about at least 200 years old, and as an aspen, does it have tieback and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think it depends on how much how big a project is. That we had to do all sorts of animal surveys and things. So yeah, about 20,000 for that. So, but I can't think there's anything missing out of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And we keep going back to it, as you say, Ian. It's so invaluable. It's amazing, the need for
this is somebody asked earlier about an image. Now, so This is
That's-
it. Roisin has just posted it, and that's the ash tree that's growing
Mm,
out
Yeah.
of the church. And
mhm,
you can
yeah.
see the conservation and repointing works that have taken
Yeah.
place. Now, I think there was their Community Monuments Fund from the National
Yep.
Monument Service used for that.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
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 And then there
Yeah.
was Heritage Council money went in earlier as well. And then the
Yeah.
Discovery Programme did some work. And then
Yeah.
in terms of Chrissy's project at Gallows Hill, there was Royal Irish Academy,
Funding.
National Committee for Archaeology money used, which again comes from the National Monuments. And then there was Heritage Council money used for
Yeah.
some of the earlier surveys as well. So
Yeah.
I think it's only right to acknowledge that.
Yep.
Now,
Absolutely.
Chrissy, there's a question there for you. Have you done any DNA analysis of the remains unearthed at Gallows Hill?
Not yet, but it's something that we are talking about. The museum are actually speaking about it recently. It's something we would love to do because we've done some radiocarbon, we've done some isotope analysis. But when we had the isotope analysis done, they actually compared it to Kilgreeny. There was a burial in Kilgreeny man. He was thought to be one of the oldest humans. I think he was Neolithic in the end. But it would be great to do something between the two of those, even, to link. And again, it's it's again, I suppose, it's bringing not just the history, but you're kind of connecting with the people that are there today. A project or
Absolutely.
something that would maybe involve people living today, and DNA analysis.
Yeah.
It would be definitely something that we're looking to do. It's not been done yet, but yeah, hopefully soon, Paddy. Yeah, we will hopefully in the next year or two, maybe.
Okay. Paul, I see a hand up, but I'm not sure if we can, I'm not sure how you can speak using this webinar as it's set up. If you have a comment, I know we've answered a question earlier, just type it in the chat. But other than that, I think we've answered all the questions. I see thanks are coming in for each presenter for a very informative presentation. Informative, the word that keeps going. Now I see it. Oh, Paul says, okay, thank you. Now, will we be sending a link to the presentations? If Christina, Roisin and Liz are happy enough, we have recorded it, so we will post that. We'll put that on the Heritage Council's website or social media. But I don't see any more questions coming in, and it's nearly lunchtime. So I think all that remains to be said is thank Christina, Roisin, Liz, Martina, who in our office was helping work the levers behind the scenes, and just thank everybody for listening, all your questions and your attention and your time. If you have any queries, email them to us, adoptamonument@heritagecouncil.ie. We'll try answer them as quick as we can. And apply deadline is the 21st of March. We'd love to see those applications coming in. Have I left out anything, Roisin?
No, I think that covers it all. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Thanks, Ian. Thanks so much for that. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.